Okay, thank you very much, Aidan. Glad to be here again, and to chair this Sheehy Skeffington, this actually important anniversary Sheehy Skeffington School. I just make a few remarks before we start. This year, 2016, we know is very significant, but I think it's important to remember just how much a discussion has been opened up in the course of all the commemorative activities during this year. A discussion which showed the very varied emancipatory strands in the movement which led to 1916, contrary to the established narrative which had previously been dominant. And this very varied kind of movement, I think we now know, it's very different from that very sterile and rather discussion that occurred in the 1980s between the so-called revisionist school of history and more traditional ones, where this very binary position was presented, that either one had to say that absolutely that the established narrative which had existed up to then, which presented nationalism as predominantly a Catholic movement and relatively monocultural, and that was opposed by people who essentially said it was not necessary, and that really we would have been fine with Home Rule. We did see that discussion during the 1916 commemorations, but it was only a very small element of it. There was, I think, I want to acknowledge particularly the role of President Higgins in ensuring all of the various strands were actually understood and recognised during the commemorative period. So we have now, I think, a more nuanced understanding of them. And those strands included, of course, Irish language and culture, the long tradition of opposition to British imperialism, and a kind of republicanism which drew its inspiration from the French Revolution and was opposed to an aristocratic type of social organisation. But we do have to acknowledge that there was also much more conservative pro-independence aspirations, which saw Ireland aspired that Ireland would participate in European imperialism towards the rest of the world. Did not have the more emancipatory and internationalist attitude that some of the others did. There was a very strong strand of secular anti-clericalism in that movement which led to 1916, along with really quite a sectarian Catholic nationalism. And of course, I think that that tradition certainly got buried in the subsequent decades. The central importance of women and of the movement for social justice, as exemplified by Cumann na mBan and the Citizen Army. And we should remember as well, I think, that the Citizen Army died in such numbers, disproportionately really to their size, which I have no doubt contributed to the evisceration of the leadership of the labour movement in the subsequent decades. Now today we are celebrating some of those strands, but not all of them. And I think we do understand that those divisions in Irish society and those divisions in terms of outlook are still with us today. We're celebrating the strands within that emancipatory movement leading to 1916, which recognised the role of women, the importance of culture in the development of a national identity, and the importance of having a very inclusive and diverse culture, not monoculturalism. An understanding there can be no freedom without social justice, that everybody equally deserves a recognition of their human rights, and international solidarity, particularly in this era of globalisation. I don't think the Sheehy Skeffington School is celebrating other strands which do still survive today. For example, the conservative Catholicism, which still exists in our society. We are, and was a very important part of that movement. We're not celebrating it. Let others do that. The desire that is still out there that Ireland should ape the big European powers in its attitudes towards the rest of the world. And I'm sure everyone here shares my embarrassment that we were so triumphalist in celebrating what the bullying of Syriza by the bigger European powers. And economic conservatism. So we should acknowledge that different social forces were at work in 1916. And it wasn't a united movement, it was a diverse movement. And I think today, everybody who's involved in the Sheehy Skeffington School are on a side of that debate. I think we know which side it is. So without further ado, I want to invite Micheline Sheehy Skeffington to give the opening talk. There is a screen, I think, about to come down. And I'm delighted that we are celebrating at this time what the Sheehy Skeffington stood for. Thank you.
New technology.
A dark shop. At least there is one. Thanks very much, Carol, and I think you're right. There were lots of different strands involved in the rising. I have a very short time to talk about two lives, one not so long, obviously, Francis. So I'm just going to give you a kind of slideshow with some talks. These are from family collections that's now in the National Library. And maybe to start, you should all know the proclamation by heart now after the last few weeks. But to focus on two aspects of it: the Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights, equal opportunities to all its citizens, and then at the end, suffrages to all her men and women. And the several strands there that the Sheehy Skeffingtons were involved in, I think they would have been influential in this. Quite certainly, they were friendly with James Connolly, they were friendly with Thomas MacDonagh. Both Connolly and MacDonagh were supportive of the suffrage movement and spoke a lot at gatherings about suffrage. It's clearly a Republican, a nationalist statement. It couldn't be anything other than that, which they were as well. The women are included as equal to